All right. How's it going, everybody? Just waiting a few minutes. Let's see if people join. We'll do a quick review of the final project. And just do a kind of an initial setup for the project and go from there. All right. So, welcome to Design of Virtual Game Environments. In this course, you'll be primarily focusing on creating a final project based on one of the provided scenario documents. Okay, so there are two assignments that you'll encounter throughout the course. The first, of course, is your final project, which is again based on one of these three scenarios, which we'll get to. And the second is you'll see this term thrown around in the course, a space race. And that's, don't think of that as an entire second project. That's just the name that the course gives the tutorial assignments. So by the end of the course, you should essentially have two projects, right? So the one is your final project, which is the actual important one. And then the second is a project where all of your tutorial assignments were done in. So you can see like in module 3 here, this says space race game level. That's just referring to the tutorial assignments, okay? So don't worry too much about that stuff. Additionally, here you'll see planets, stars, and objects will be constantly moving in the background, blah, blah, blah. Don't worry too much about that stuff either. If you go into the readings and resources, there are videos in here showing you how to complete the tutorial assignments. Okay. So if you follow kind of what's in the videos, you will do well on the tutorial assignments. Now, if you want to kind of explore these concepts on your own and extend upon them, you're more than welcome to do that. But these videos are here for you to kind of learn how to navigate Unreal Engine, stuff like that. Okay. So in all the modules, you'll see videos in the required resources. The most important resources are in module 1. Okay, so here are the kind of stuff for the test software assignments. Installing Unreal, installing Git, configuring Git, and then creating a repository project, which is what we're going to be doing in this lecture here in a little bit. But yeah, so these are the real important videos. Creating a project, a repository and project being the most important, because it shows you how to set up what's called a git ignore and git attributes. Git attributes is the file that gets created when you initialize large file storage with your Git repository, which again, you'll learn, by watching this video. That'll, make sense, but that's why this is so important. That said, we are not using source tree in this course. Source tree, the course says Bitbucket and then parentheses it says source tree. I don't know why it does that, because these they're not the same thing. Bitbucket is this. So for those of you that might be familiar with things like GitHub, GitHub is a Git repository, much like Bitbucket is a Git repository. It's just a different one, but it's essentially the same exact thing as GitHub. So that's what Bitbucket is. SourceTree is a standalone software that basically helps you manage Git by basically clicking buttons instead of putting in the commands individually. Now, the resource videos all show you how to use Git via command line, because I think it's really important for you to learn what Git's doing and what's happening, right? That's kind of the whole premise. Excuse me, sorry about that. That's kind of the whole premise behind Git, right? And what we're teaching you in this course is really how to use it and what's going on under the hood versus just kind of clicking buttons and not really being too sure what's going on. That's kind of the difference between them. So make sure you're utilizing Git and not SourceTree. And you should be good to go. So that would kind of reflect the module 1 install software. So right here, how it says SourceTree, we're not using SourceTree. Bitbucket is this, and then Unreal Engine is just the Unreal Engine. Now, I've recently made an update to my announcement in the course. I'm okay with you using Unreal Engine 5. However, all of the course resources and what I'll be showing you is Unreal Engine 4. Now, 99% of what you're shown in Unreal 4 is transferable to Unreal 5. So it's not really a huge deal, but it's something to keep in mind that I'm required to show Unreal 4, so I don't really have a choice in the matter. But you can use UE5 if you choose to. Just keep in mind, there are differences regarding kind of where things are located in the readings and resources. The videos I may show you one way, but Unreal 5 has the button in a different location, things like that. So if you're okay with doing your own research in regards to locating different things for Unreal Engine 5, you can use it. Okay. But yeah, so let's hop into real quick the scenario documents. I know I already review this stuff in the announcements here. Oh, interesting. My game's not showing up. There's a game you can play that works here, but here's a showcase project, and here's a video reviewing module 1, and then this is reviewing the whole course, basically kind of what I just talked about. But I just wanted to do a quick run through of it live. All right, so here's the Metallic Detective Treasure Hunter game. The way I like to look at these projects is each one kind of has a special focus to it. So the Metallic Detective Treasure Hunter game has a diggable terrain. So the landscape needs to be diggable. And I usually show this off in the lectures with a procedural terrain. And the procedural terrain, basically it interacts with, or the player can interact with the landscape and actually modify the vertices to dig down, and then the treasure would be underneath it. So that's essentially kind of the core focus of, mechanic-wise for the Metallic Detective game. Now, moving on, Fuzzy Farmer is more of an AI focus. Okay, so with your, and this is a typo, actually, you do not have to have the digging mechanic in the Fuzzy Farmer game, but the fuzzies themselves would be AI, right? So that's kind of the core focus of the Fuzzy Farmer prototype. And then finally, the Clean Your Room. I like to showcase this as kind of a physics pickup. sort of thing. So they're physics objects that you have to walk over, interact with, pick up, and move to move to kind of a score area kind of thing. So that's how I typically look at the clean your room prototype as well. Depending on which one you pick, I would like everybody to kind of have that focus in one of their, in their final project. It typically will yield better results in terms of gameplay and stuff like that. But now, that doesn't mean you absolutely have to do it exactly how I show it. So like the diggable terrain for the, showing the procedural. If you choose the metallic detective game, you don't have to do it the exact way I show it, right? And in fact, I would like to see your own kind of customization with that. If your own twist or approach to it, you know what I mean? That being said, please don't hesitate to follow along with the stuff I do in the lectures. If you just want to kind of learn how to implement these things, you're more than welcome to. I just don't want to see an exact one-to-one replica of what I show in the live lectures and your final project. Okay. Mix it up a little bit, add your own stuff to your prototype as well, and you should be good to go. All right, so what I'm going to do first, let's launch Unreal Engine. So I'm going to launch 427.2. And again, like I said, I'm totally fine with you using Unreal 5. Just keep in mind that all of the stuff in the course is Unreal 4. All right, so we choose games next. You can choose, let's do third person next. I do not want starter content. Blueprint. This is going to be, let's do that. WIT 303. While that's happening, we're going to create a new repository. So click create repository. Workspace, I'll do 303, but you can create a new project if you want to. Repo name 303. And make sure you choose no for both of these, okay? No for readme, no for get ignore, because we're going to be creating our own, okay? So create. All right. So now, Unreal Engine is open. I'm going to go ahead and just right click. This is the easiest way to do this. Show and Explorer. And I'll open up a folder prompt for us so we can get to our project. So when you're working with a repository, let's close out Unreal. You always want to be working from the root branch, or the root folder, excuse me, of your project. So right here would be the root folder. So if I open this up, you'll see that the uproject file and all that good stuff is inside. So here, once you get Git installed and configured, show more options, git bash here. And we open this up. And now I want to initialize this folder as a repository. So do git init. Hit enter, and now you'll see the .git folder show up. If you don't see this, it's because you have hidden files or folders turned off. So go to Options, View, Show Hidden Files, Folders, and Drives, and while you're at it, uncheck Hide Extensions for known file types, and click Apply and OK. So then you'll be able to see the .git folder. Now we'll right-click, New, Text Document, and now we want to go to Google and type in UE4 git ignore, like that. Click that guy. And then bring you to this page. We're going to copy the raw file. And then open this guy up, the text document. We want to paste that in there Go to File, Save As, click All Files, and then name it .getignore. Okay. Close that, and we can delete the text document. So now if I do git status, we're going to see if our getignore is set up properly, which it is. And you can tell because you don't see the saved or intermediate folders when I do git status here. Okay, so this is showing what files are you have that are altered that are going to be eventually pushed to the repository. Okay. So now what we want to do is install our LFS. So git LFS install. It says initialize, but nothing happened yet because we're not actually tracking anything. Git LFS track quotation star dot uasset quotation. Okay. Now uassets are the recognized file type that Unreal Engine 4 uses. Okay, there's pretty much two file types, right? There's uasset and then there's umap, and we're going to track both of these files. Okay, so LFS basically means large file storage. So what happens is when you have really big files and you push it to your repository, you have limited space on your repository. So basically, if you have like a 300 megabyte file, for example, and you push to your repository, what LFS is going to do is it's going to store that 300 megabyte file separately from your main repository and create what's called kind of a binary file. So if you look at the actual file sizes when you're on your repository, you'll see like, go maps. You see how this is 8,000 kilobytes or 8 megabytes. The binary file that shows up on your repository, this will be like 1 kilobyte. Okay. And the other 8,336 kilobytes will be stored separately, which your repository will manage. And it's just a really clean way of managing your repository size. That said, you do have limited LFS storage space as well. So I highly recommend applying for the student education license through Bitbucket or Atlassian, because they'll give you 5 gigabytes LFS storage as opposed to the 1 gigabyte that's free. Okay. So if we do another git status here, we'll see git attributes, which is our LFS tracking, git ignore, which is ignoring the saved and intermediate folders, and then our config content and uproject, which is our actual project. Okay, those are the things we need to open it. The derived data cache, intermediate, and saved are generated every single time we open the editor. So like, you know, if I was to send those to Sally Joe does not need these 3 folders in order to open my project. Okay, so we're going to add. So git add and then a space and then a period after will add everything. If I wanted to add individual things, I can do content. I could do a particular file. You know, if I wanted to just add like the 3rd person character, you know, it would look something like that. I can do that, right? But because I don't want to add individual files, I'm just going to do git add and then a period. If I wanted to, if I didn't want to add something in particular, so let's say like I made a bunch of changes, I was working on the player character and I accidentally saved it over to the level. And, you know, if I have another separate level designer working on that level, I don't want to push my testing changes to the repository because I'm not the level designer, right? So you could do like git restore and then the particular folder or file, and it will erase your changes, so there won't be any merge conflicts when you go to, you know, merge your repository, which again, all of this stuff will kind of make sense the more you work with it. I'm just kind of putting a bug in your ear that, you know, this is kind of the proper workflow that you should be following. So now I'm going to do what's called a commit. And this commit will, you you can kind of think of it like a change log, right? So each time you make changes to your project and do a commit, you should attach a message to it that indicates kind of what was done, right? So here I'm saying initial commit because this is the first time I'm doing a commit. And I'll show you an example here in a minute. So here I'm going to push. So git push is the command, origin is the name of the repository, and then master is the name of the branch I'm on. Okay, so if I was on Go Lucky, I would push to Go Lucky. And again, that'll. Oh, I forgot an important step. On your repository, we need to link the remote. So you want to copy this line, and this is why it's very important that you do not include the default README or the default git ignore when creating your repository, because this link won't show up. You'll have to do a clone, and it's kind of a different process. So if you don't see this page like this, delete the repo, go to repository settings and delete it, and recreate it without the README and the git ignore, and then you'll be able to see this. So here, git remote add origin, then the link. And now I can push to my repository. So you see here it's uploading my LFS objects. All right, so now we'll refresh, and here's my project on my repo. Beautiful. So now what I want to do is start working. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to convert my third-person character to a first-person character. So you can kind of consider it a true first-person character. Okay, and in the meantime, I'll kind of show you the workflow that I follow with Git. Now, the steps do matter. The order of which you perform these steps is incredibly valuable, or incredibly important, excuse me. So what I recommend doing is getting a notebook or like a sticky note or something like that. And while you're reviewing the process, after you've reviewed the process several times over, jot down the process. And kind of like a list or steps. So, so you know how to do it, right? So the first step after we're kind of ready is create a new branch. So here I'm going to create a new branch. I'm going to call it first to third. And check out. So -B is the tag to create a new branch and check that branch out. Okay. So the branching, you think of it like a literal tree, right? The master branch is the trunk. This new branch that I made is a branch off of the trunk. So anything that exists on the branch does not necessarily exist on the trunk until you merge it. Okay. So you can pretty much do whatever you want here. And it won't really make much of a difference on the master until later when you go to merge it back in. Okay. So now that I checked out a new branch, I'm going to go ahead and open up my project. All right. So now everybody should be familiar with Unreal and how it works. Everybody should have taken 207. But for basic like navigation, if you hold right mouse button and move your mouse around, it acts like a first-person camera. Then you can use WASD to navigate around the environment, like a flying pawn kind of thing. Alternatively, you can hold left and right mouse button down and move your mouse side to side and up and down. You go vertically. Hold left mouse button down, and you can do that. Moving an object up, pressing end on the keyboard will snap them to the closest collision. You can use W E and R to switch between the widgets, all that good stuff, right? Hold Alt and drag, and you can make a duplicate. Right. So what I want to do here is edit the third person character. So in here, we are going to make a second camera. So I'm going to select my mesh, choose camera, and I want this camera to be attached to the head on my mesh. So because it's already parented, or camera's already a child of the mesh, if it wasn't, it would be like down here. So click and drag, and if it should be a drop down underneath it. Then you select the camera, select this magnifying glass, and you'll see all the bones of its parent, which is the mesh. So I want to choose the head. Okay. You'll see it's kind of snapped here. So what I want is, oops, what am I doing? 90, and then, oh, that's a negative 90. Okay. You want to check on use pawn control rotation, and this will make sure that the control rotation of the pawn, the rotation of the controller, is what's going to control kind of the yaw of the camera, and then the pitch is going to be kind of your mouse input. So I'm going to turn off real time. I want to pull this forward just a little bit, like that. Class defaults, use controller rotation yaw. So the camera and the character will rotate yaw together, which is the z-axis like this, and then pitch will be independent of the character. Now I want to click follow camera and scroll down. We might create a toggle later, that's why I left it there. But I want to uncheck auto activate, and then auto activate should be checked on for our main camera. New editor window. And now you can see I have a camera. So if I look down, I can see my body jumping. I can see my hands. And as I rotate, you see the yaw is shared between the character and the camera, but my pitch is not. So this is more like a true first person. Right? Pretty cool. All right, so save that. And I kind of want to show you an example of the restore process. So I'm going to move him. I'm going to save the map too. And we'll close this out. So here I'll do get status. Make sure Unreal is closed, by the way. If Unreal Engine is not closed and you try to push any changes that you made via Git, if you push your changes with Git, you'll get like an unlink a file error. It'll say, would you like to try pushing again, unlink file, and then I'll ask you yes or no. It's doing that because Unreal Engine is still open. So make sure Unreal's closed and then restart that, and it should let you do it. All right, so here, this is kind of the start of the process I showed earlier, right, with the add. I do not want to add the example map. I only want to add my character, okay? So if I do get add content, third person BP, and typed it out, I could do that. So all I really need to do is this, okay? Oh, wait. Because this is in the maps folder, this is in the blueprints folder. So I would only be adding what's in the blueprints folder. Alternatively, you can just double click this, copy, paste. Okay. So now I just added that character. So now I have the character added in green, waiting for a commit. And here in red, I have the third person example map that I do not want. So what I can do is get restore, paste, get status again. So now the only change file I have is the third person character, which is exactly what I want. Okay. So now I'll do a commit message. And again, this should reflect what you did, right? So change third person to first person camera, like that. And now I'll get push origin first to third. And I just realized that I named that backwards for the branch. It should be third to first. Oh well, the commit message is right, and that's what matters. So now I'm pushing that to my repository. So now you'll see it says create pull request for the branch. Okay. So if I refresh this, we won't see any changes. Why? Because we're on master branch. We're not on the third branch. So if I go to pull requests, create pull request, it should automatically detect your most recent branch. But if for whatever reason it hasn't, or you're working with another person in a future course, make sure you select source branch and choose the branch that you want to merge up. So now here you can see third person character is the only change I made. There are no conflicts. So I want to delete this branch after it's merged. Create. Okay, so we'll approve and merge this. All right, so now my first to third branch is merged into my master branch. So what we would do is check out the master branch, and then we would pull, okay? And the reason we're pulling is, again, because the first to third branch was a separate branch. What exists on that branch isn't necessarily on what's on the trunk, right? However, we did merge it, but the remote repository, which is this, is separate from our local repository, okay? So we merged it on our remote, but none of those changes are on our local machine, okay? So we would need to pull. If I don't pull, if I were to open Unreal Engine, none of our changes will be there, okay? So I'm going to show that real quick. All right. So here you can see this is still very much third person. I'm going to close that out. If I pull, get pull origin master, like this. You see it updated the third person character. Let me open up Unreal again. And now you can see my changes are here. So that's the overall workflow, right? So after I pull master, I would go ahead and check out a new branch, open Unreal, do my work, close Unreal, add, commit, push to my branch, do my pull request, approve and merge, check out master, pull master, and then rinse and repeat, basically, right? And again, I show this whole process tons of times throughout the course, so you'll get used to kind of seeing the process, seeing the workflow, and how everything functions that way. But yeah, that's pretty much everything I want to show off today. In the next lecture, I'll go ahead and show off maybe the procedural terrain. I think we'll kind of tackle that. Or at least the procedural mesh component. I'll showcase that first, and then we'll kind of move on from there. But all right, well, thanks so much, everybody. I really appreciate it. And if you need any help at all, don't hesitate to ask, okay? Thanks so much. Y'all have a good day.